when I asked you to do the show, I said, you're an automatic. You're like, what's an automatic? I said, I got a feeling I'm going to say, hey, Ralph, what is it you do? And then 28 minutes later, I'll say, yeah, okay, that's a wrap. So I met you at the Friendship Club in the Zoom room, conference room, where you were, well, one of the things that pricked my ears up was the word capturing. That has a specific meaning in your world, and it was about people freshly released from prisons. What do y'all mean when you say capturing?
Yeah, so what we mean is, when individuals get released from incarceration, a lot of times they don't have support when they get out. They don't have monetary support, family support. They don't have a home to go to, and so with the nonprofit that me and Chef Fernando have, we capture them. They get sent to the restaurant, to Escondido restaurant, which is the landing pad for the participants that we teach inside the prison. And so we capture them
straight from incarceration to the restaurant that y'all run.
Yes.
Run may not be the right word, but talk about the restaurant for a minute.
Yeah. So Escondido, beautiful place. It's Chef Fernando's very first restaurant. Fernando is a 3-time Food Network champion. He took first place at Guys Grocery Games, took first place at Chopped, and he beat Bobby Flay in 2019.
Whoa! And we're talking Santa Fe, by the way, because this show goes all around the world. So come to Santa Fe. We're famous for our restaurants, and this is an amazing one. I've been there. This is no hot dogs and Coke joint. I mean, the menu is elaborate and beautifully done.
Oh, it's phenomenal. And they have 3 different menus. They have a brunch menu, a lunch menu, and a dinner menu. And the brunch menu is just, man, it's eloquent. It's off the hook. I can't explain just how great it is. The lunch menu is a little bit more mellow, but there's such a big variety on the dinner menu. He also has the dish that beat Bobby Flay, the chili en nogadas. And so that's a popular one.
So a person gets released from prison, and how do they find their way to you? How does that happen?
So Chef and I, we started a reentry program. We go into the New Mexico State Penitentiary 3 nights a week for 8 weeks, and we teach cohorts of 15. And the individuals that we teach, the participants, have 10 months or less to the door. And so they're getting ready to get out. Some of them have spent 5 years. We have an individual right now who's been incarcerated for 22 years. And he went in when he was 19. And he gets out in about 4 months. And, when you get that close to the door, when you've been locked up, whether it's a year or 20 years, you get excited, right? You get excited, you get motivated. You're inspired to do good because you know the effects of jail. You don't want to end up in jail again. But you also get scared.
Hang on. You've covered a lot of ground. What is it you're teaching these folks when you go in the jail?
So it's an 8-week program. We do part pro skills and part culinary. And so with the pro skills,
chef skills, kitchen skills.
Yeah. Well, with the pro skills, we teach them how to be comfortable in their own skin. We teach them how to conduct themselves privately versus professionally. We teach them how to sit across.
What do you mean you teach them to be comfortable in their own skins?
Well, a lot of them have, tattoos, from, all over their face, their head, their arms. And a lot of times they think that that's going to hold them back from being able to be successful in society. And so we teach them how to be comfortable in their own skin. I mean, look at me. I have tattoos. Both of my arms are tattooed up. My whole chest is, Chef has his neck tattooed. And so a lot of times.
Did you do time, Ralph?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done a lot of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done a lot of time.
Okay. And so, you sit down and have like an office meeting with is it guys? It's men?
It's men. Yeah, we're in the men's facility.
You sit down with the men and say, hey, you're about to get out. Here's some things you might not be thinking about. Maybe we can help. Is that the way it goes? I mean,
it's a group of 15. And so it's a group of 15. So we do cohorts of 15 individuals. And so, we share our life story with them, right? We connect with them because we've been in that position before. Like I told you when I met you, I was addicted for 11 years to cocaine and heroin from 2001 to 2012. In 2006, I lost everything because of my addiction. Ended up homeless in my community of Espinela. Lived homeless on the streets for 6 years under bridges, in makeshift tents, in places I can find warmth in the cold of winter. And that was my lifestyle for 6 years. I went to rehab in San Diego. I went to rehab in South Florida. I went to rehab twice in Farmington, New Mexico. I went to rehab in Hernandez, New Mexico. And my last rehab was at Oil Recovery in Velarde, New Mexico. I was in and out of jail for things that my addiction led me to do, right? I've done a lot of county time. I never went to the penitentiary, but I've done a ton of county time. I've done time in Rio Arriba County. I've done time in Santa Fe County, Bernalillo County, McKinley County, San Miguel County, and West Palm Beach County. I picked up 5 felonies in the state of New Mexico and 1 felony in the state of Florida during that time. And like, as a matter of fact, at the time that I went to Florida, I went to a facility up there. My mom and my brother helped me to get out there. I stayed at the facility for about maybe a month, and then I got the urge, right, to do drugs. The urge was just still strong, and so I left the facility. Ended up homeless in Florida for about 8.5 months. I lived homeless in Florida, West Palm Beach, and then I got caught doing some things I shouldn't have been doing. So then I ended up in West Palm Beach County, and and so there's a lot of trial and error in between that times. And so like Chef, he actually grew up in the gang life. He started the gang life at the age of 13 and selling drugs.
Where?
And in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And he ended up at the age of 17 getting caught, and he's been shot, he's been stabbed, and so he did 4 years in prison in Arizona. And so
in prison, which I've never been to, knock wood,
right.
But I do work with a pastor here in New Mexico that helps with volunteer services, things like recovery meetings. We're getting them put in there virtually. But I was not I don't know shit about jail or prison. It's not my world.
Yeah, you don't want to. It's not a nice place.
No, I don't feel like I missed
visit.
anything. But I believe he said, and check me out here, that they're sort of segregated by what gang you're in or ethnicity. Is that right? How does that work?
It's different. Prisons are different all across America. I mean, over here in the state of New Mexico, the prisons that we go to, they're segregated by crime levels. And so if you have really violent crimes, if you continue with that attitude, they can place you like in a level 6, which is the highest maximum security, prison there is. We go into a level 2. And so to get to a level 2, you have to be, your crimes have to be low. Or if you have a high violent crime, but your character you've simmered down while you're in jail, and you can get to a level 2. So they do it by levels. I
once heard it said that the best way to get somebody out of a life of crime is to wait. The guys in their 40s are way different than 20-year-old hotheads. Do you agree with that thought?
For the majority of the time, yeah, I guess, especially, when you've done a lot of time in jail, 20s, 30s. By the time you're 40 years old, you've like had enough with, going to jail or whatever. But you still run into individuals who are like institutionalized, and so they've made a life out of it. And
that's a word I've heard. Can you talk about that?
Institutionalized, yeah. And so to become institutionalized is a very segregated thing, because you kind of accept that kind of life, right? You accept that kind of life. Your mentality kind of just stays in its criminal way of thinking.
Like your thinking changes?
Your thinking doesn't change, right? If you're doing criminal activity and you continue to just hold on to that, and you don't see any way out of that, and you kind of just become institutionalized, right? You don't mind being in a facility like that. So.
Okay. Yeah. And you can still commit crimes in prison.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, we have a board member on our reentry program on our nonprofit. Who
plug it? What's it called?
It's called Entrepreneurial Institute of Northern New Mexico, or EINNM, and you can check us out at EINNM.org. But one of our board members, he actually got sentenced to 3 years in prison when he was in his early 20s. And he was a knucklehead, right? And so he had a certain way of thinking, and he was rebellious. And so he ended up starting to pick up more charges while he was in prison. They sent him to a level 6. He was in the maximum security. Yeah. Oh yeah. He was up there with all the bad guys, right? And so he ended up going in on a 3-year sentence and ended up doing 15 years because he just kept getting charges while he was in prison. It was at around year 13 when he grew older, and he had already been through a lot in prison, that he said that his mind started to change. And so he did. He changed his life around while he was in prison after getting out 15 years later. He's been out for 5 years now, and he's doing phenomenal, man. He's doing really, really good. And he's such a strong voice for recovery, for reentry, for, he's like living proof that you can become successful even after going through a lot, right? So
to squares like me, I've enjoyed a life of privilege. I know that because I did a lot of illegal stuff back when I was getting high. I'm sober 32 years now, but
congratulations, that's a big feat.
Yeah, it's a long time between drinks, and I like it fine. I like my life now, and
I just celebrated 13 years.
God bless. I love it. That's what I'm talking about. So unconsciously, I can think of the prison system as a garbage can. It's like you punch your ticket by, and that's not the way it works. As I told you, I'm working with a pastor now, a really cool fella who this is his life doing parallel to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And one of the first things he looked me in the eye and said, "They're all getting out." He said, "It's very rare for a guy to get tossed in the jug and never get out. They're all getting out. So what are we going to do?"
At some point, yep, and he's right about that.
He's right about that.
I mean, I look at that, and that reminds me of...
You talked about a guy going in as a teenager, getting out in his 40s. He's getting out.
He gets out in less than 5 months.
And he's been chopping onions and stuff. What's up?
Oh, yeah. No, we do, like I said, we do the part pro skills, and then we do the culinary portion. Chef Ruiz goes in.
Oh, the pro skills, you're talking about job interviews and... these kinds of things.
We get them prepared. We give them the tools that it takes to land the job, and then we teach them the culinary portion. So we give them the tools to actually do the job when it comes to culinary.
You said, and I mentioned at the top that I met you in a different meeting, and at that time, you or one of your colleagues said that when these people are fresh out, that you say, do this the way you want to do it. You want to work an hour? Work an hour. You want to work a long schedule? Do that. You want to work a couple of days a week? Do that. So they don't panic and overwhelm, I would think.
Yeah, we reintegrate them into society. And so the individuals, we've been able to capture a couple individuals that have graduated from our program. And then, when they get out, because people come from all over the state of New Mexico. And so when they get out, they're going to different parts of the state of New Mexico. Some people have family. Some people have a support system. Some people have a home and, their children to go back to. Some people don't, And so no matter where they land in the state of New Mexico, we tell them that we can help them no matter where they're at. We have connections when it comes to services and employment all over the state of New Mexico.
No, I heard you guys, talk behind closed doors about, person A really, really needs help in this way, and I vote we give it to him. What does the board say to that? So it looks like you're really taking a thoughtful look. And life is a gamble. We don't know what tomorrow holds for any of us.
Right.
And but you guys are probably pretty good handicappers of what's up when somebody gets out.
Yeah. And so we know you can't just, jump into the pool head first, without, swimming for a long time. And
does it ever work the other way? Do some people just want to bury themselves in work and not think about, I'd rather think about chopping onions than, the stuff that's going through my head.
Yeah, and it's different. So in November, we were able to.
By the way, I respect the shit out of somebody who can chop an onion properly. I still suck at it.
Oh no, me too. Yeah, you and me both. Yeah, I get afraid of the knife, because they do it so fast. They make it look so easy.
I didn't mean that as a diss. Believe me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, so like we were able to capture a guy who got out in November. And
capture the way you described. He was brought into your.
He was he was able to get.
Because it sounds like you're running down the road with a butterfly net.
But he got out and he was dropped off at Escondido restaurant, and we were there to greet him, and we took him in, and we worked with him. He fell under the umbrella of our services that we provide. And so, but he did 14 years in prison, that gentleman. And so after getting out, after 14 years, I mean, it was hard for him. There's a lot of things he didn't know. He didn't even know what a Keurig was. He was so impressed with the Keurig machine. It was
the little
wild.
Little coffee pot.
He had never seen that before.
Right.
He had never seen a smartphone. Right. And so to introduce him to the smartphone and to see the look on his face, the puzzled look on his face. And so to get caught up with things that are current from 14 years ago, it could be a lot. It could be a lot.
What do people have behind bars? What things are they allowed to possess and not possess? Because
they're not allowed to possess much at all.
We're bringing 12-step meetings into like media rooms, I gather, but they don't. What? They've got paperback books and a bunk.
Exactly. Paperback books, a bunk, a towel, a mattress. I mean, they have a stationary telephone inside of their pod that they live in. It's like a payphone. And so individuals are able to use that to call their loved ones if their loved ones are able to put money on their books to receive the phone calls. Right. And, they have a commentary sheet. So every week they're able to order goods, right? Like soups and hygiene
if they have money in the bank.
If they have money in the bank, yeah. But the Department of Corrections, they offer different job opportunities, right? You can work on the roads, you can work in the farm, you can work in the kitchen, you can work as a janitor.
On release or while you're in?
No, while you're in there.
Okay.
I mean, while you're in there, you don't get paid much. You get paid maybe like 50 cents an hour. So you don't get paid much at all. So if you don't have a family who can support you, money-wise, monetary-wise, you can make a little bit of money like that.
But you're talking about $20 a week or something.
That ain't much. That ain't much at all. I think there's an individual in our program who's working. They're having them fill sandbags. I don't know why I think it's for probably for the Department of Transportation. But they fill sandbags and then they ship pallets of sandbags out. But I think they get paid, I think it's like $1.10 an hour. And that's one of like the best jobs that you can have while you're in there, So they don't get paid much at all.
Wow. Let's start at the beginning. I get dropped off at your porch. I don't have a place to stay. What's up?
Yeah. So we're there to meet you. So, we take you in and we feed you. That's the first thing we do is we feed you and we sit down.
You have like what I would think of as a sober living house that has 10 bedrooms and 20 guys.
I wish.
Okay.
No, I wish. I mean, we're new. We just launched this program in August, so we're barely in our third.
Oh no.
We're barely in our third cohort, and so we've only had 4 people that have graduated from our program get out of prison, and 2 of them. And here's the difference. So there's some of them get out on probation and parole, and some of
What's the difference?
Probation and parole, it's pretty much the same thing. You're being monitored. And so if you get out on probation and parole, well, then you have to find a halfway house in the state of New Mexico that will accept you for at least 6 months. So you have to go through a halfway house before you can officially get out, get released. And so that's different because then you kind of have rules and regulations
I'm guessing there's a shortage of availability there for halfway houses.
Oh yeah, you gotta look for a bed and you gotta make arrangements prior to
have rent, right? You pay rent.
Every halfway house is different, and so some of them you're allowed to go out and work, some of them you're not. Some of them you're entitled to. You're restricted to staying inside the house and following whatever guidelines and rules and plans that they have set up within that halfway house. And so it's different. But then you have the ones that get out with no probation, no parole. They've squashed their time in prison.
Okay.
And
they're clean in a way.
Clean. They get out totally free. Totally free. No tail is what we say, right?
Do they give them anything? They give them clothes or money or food or anything or a coupon for Walmart? Anything when they get out?
No.
I'm just asking. I don't know.
They'll give you if you have
just dump a brother on the street without a penny in his pocket. I don't know what you do.
If you have money in your bank account, in your books, they're at the prison. They'll cut you a check for whatever that is. They make sure that you have a New Mexico state issued ID before you get out. And that's pretty much about it,
Wow.
And so it makes it hard. If you get out with a check and an ID, but no bank account, that can pose a problem to even cash the check. Right. And so, so there's hurdles. There's hurdles right from the minute you get out. And so the first 30 days are super important with these individuals because the first 30 days can actually make them or break them. People don't want to go back to jail, but then they end up finding themselves in a position where they have to survive and they go back to their old ways because, survival skills kick in, and then they end up finding themselves right back in the same hole they just crawled out of,
I had a conversation with a judge, very nice fella, casual, off the, away from the workplace. And
that's the best time to conversate.
He was super cool.
Yeah.
A large suburb in Southern California. And I said, can't remember what prompted me to ask him, but I said, what percentage of the cases, this is a judge, criminal court judge.
Yeah.
So what percentage of cases that come across your desk are drug and alcohol related? And he goes, wow, he wasn't expecting the question. He goes, directly or indirectly, 100%. I was not expecting that answer either, but I'm a recovery guy, and I know that I live in a world where there's a lot of gray area. I know that
drinking being a recovery guy, it's pretty amazing that you never ended up in jail.
Well, Ralph, I was a white guy in Texas in the 70s. What's up? There's
perks to everything.
Look, I didn't. You play the cards you're dealt. I was a college-educated suburban kid who got hooked on drugs and alcohol and lost all my shit. That's what happened. Now, I did end up broke ass and put in a rehab and then a 90-day sober living, but in a million years, I wouldn't compare it in any way. I'm just saying that's what happened to me. Yeah. I was dying from drugs, so and I don't say I had money. Dad sold cars and Mom was a nurse, but I kind of grew up about like The Simpsons, I would say. So whatever level that is.
What kind of drugs, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting question. I'm definitely a real alcoholic. I'm convinced that I was born with that urge. It runs through both sides of my family. Mm-hmm. And the first night I got good and shit-faced on Schlitz, it was the Vietnam War was winding down, and my older brother was joining the Army, 1972. I was 12. And I got blind drunk. I'm a little guy now. I was a shrimp when I was 12. And I drank. Do they even make Schlitz anymore? It was like these tall boys. I drank about 10 of them, threw up my toenails. I'm sure it was alcohol poisoning from what I know today.
Sounds like
it. And I felt like I'd found the keys to the kingdom. That's not normal. Yeah. When a child gets poisoned, he doesn't normally say, that was awesome. I got to do that immediately and every chance I get.
Right.
And so I started having real troubles with my drinking in my 20s. And so I quit. But I started smoking. No, I upped my smoking of weed to 24/7. And, nowadays, that's what I was about to say earlier. I know that drinking is legal, and I know most people drink. I know that weed is now, depending on where you live, legal.
I can't drink. That's one of the things. Yeah. That's one of the things that kept sending me into left field and into outer space.
I see these. I'm sober 32 years, never have an urge, and I do live where there's billboards that say, we'll bring you a bag of weed and a pizza. Just call 505. I'm like, well, hell, where was that when I needed you in 1986?
Right. Such a different time we did.
And then I ended up hooked on cocaine, and that finished the job. That's it. That for a guy like me, that shit was game over.
Oh yeah,
I shriveled up to nothing. My brain turned to shit.
Yep,
and
that was me too.
And the last 3 people in the world that would put up with me threw me in a rehab, and it saved my life. I've been sober ever since. Happy to be sober. I feel like I got let out of some sort of slavery or something. It's never looked. You can say I'm full of shit, but 32 years clean and sober, it's never once sounded like a good idea, because it's bloody not a good idea. It was terrible. I hated my life, and I couldn't stop because I was addicted.
Oh no, I'm with you.
What I say to people is, addiction is no fucking joke. When that stuff's got its hooks in you, and I get, because I work in a place where I take phone calls every day. And if it's man, Uncle Larry, we just don't know what to do with him. And I say, is Uncle Larry drunk right now? And they're like, he is drunk right now. I'm like, there's not much I know to do, and I've been at this a while. Mm-hmm. If you can catch him in a lucid moment, a week from now or a month from now, when he's feeling regretful, then
those are those little windows of opportunity to be able to plant the seed,
and that's your chance.
I know.
But if you're drunk as a monkey and walking into walls right now, what am I supposed to do with that? Nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing
chain you to a radiator. Yeah,
yep, there's nothing you can do. And I go through the same thing, because I'm the same way. I take phone calls every phone call that comes my way, and I get at least 5 a week and it makes me, and it makes me feel bad because I feel like people reach out to me because I'm open with my story. It's all over. Since the day I stepped into recovery, I said, you know what? Who gives a shit, man? Like, I come from a small community. I felt like everybody knew anyways, right? I'm like, who gives a shit? We all go through something in life. And so here's my something, right? And I put it out there, and I put it out there because I wanted individuals who were going through the same thing to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that there is hope, right? That recovery is a reality. And so I put it out there. And so, people call me all the time and about their loved ones. And sometimes I feel like they think that I'm like going to be the saving grace. And it's hard because I tell them, right? I tell them, I'll go talk to them. I can do that. I can do an intervention, but I can't promise you anything, right? I can't promise you anything. And it's that tough of a situation.
Well, we did, addicts and alcoholics like me, we dig a hole, and the hole can be goddamn deep. And why would anybody, I felt done. And it turns out third of a century later, I was done. I felt done. But how are you going to get anybody to believe that when you've been nothing but a nuisance for years and decades?
Oh, yeah.
They're like, well, he's saying all the right stuff, but give it a minute here. We'll see in a year or two if he. I stole some money on the way out, and when I had about a month clean, I had made friends with a guy who had decades clean. He was a super cool cat.
Yeah,
but we just were musicians and we connected in that way. And I said, Ray, I stole some money and. I just bet the telephone wires are hot with, stories of my shenanigans. The word's getting around. And here's what Ray said. He was a smart old dude. He said, 10 years from now, 2 guys are going to meet on a street corner and your name is going to come up. And one will go, Sherman, that thief? Fuck that puto. Yeah. And the other guy's going to go, look, he babysits my kids. I would trust him with my wallet, my wife. He's fine. I don't know what you're talking about. And Ray said, that's 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the thing about that is people, the concept of time, it freaks them out, right? Well, it's going to take time for me to get to where you're at or whatever. People tell me that all the time. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It is. But on the other hand, time flies. Time flies. I've been sober 13 years and I feel like I just stepped into recovery because I hang on to it, that I hang on to what I've been through. I still go visit the old places that I stayed when I was homeless. Under the bridge, I'll go sit under the bridge for an hour, just because I don't ever want to forget.
I call that the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
I got sober in a different city, and when I'm there, I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Dude, we do 28-minute episodes, and we're there. What's your favorite thing about being clean and sober?
Is that I actually have a chance to live. I'm a father now, productive father. I'm a boyfriend. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm a friend. And I can do all that in a super genuine way.
Your little peanut's in the other room in my office. And I said, would you like to play on my computer? She goes, no, I'm cool. So you're doing something right. I don't know how you pulled that off. I need tips. Please come back.
Okay.
Loved it. All right, brother. Best.